Hello everyone, my name is Ben Mason and I'm here today at Mere Sports Technology HQ, which is based here at iGolf Studio in Sheffield. Today I'm going to be taking a look at one of the products that Mere Sports Technology distributes around the UK, and that is the HackMotion Wrist Sensor. Fantastic little product here that sits on the wrist and gives us all sorts of unbelievable data about how the wrist is moving throughout the golf swing. So let's dive in and take a look, shall we? So first of all, let's take a look at the sensor itself. It's a two-piece sensor, a bigger piece and a smaller piece connected by a wire. The bigger piece sits on the wrist here and the smaller piece sits on the back of the hand. The bigger part of the sensor has the on-off switch, has the charging port via USB, and has three lights showing you that you're connected, switched on, charged up, etc. It connects to your hand via a nice strap here, so we simply slide the strap over the hand and we connect it. We connect it just above the wrist line there, just past where the bones are, just here, and then this other bit connects onto the glove via a little clip. If you don't wear a glove, there you can get a wristband that sits on and goes round your hand as well, so that's quite good there. So that was very easy to put on. Very straightforward, nice and quick. Time to start gathering some data. So before we gather any data, what we need to do is calibrate the sensor to the wrist. This is a very, very simple process. If I click on the iPad here, there's a calibration button on the software here. It tells me exactly what it wants me to do. It says here we've got place the wrist flat and horizontal to the ground. Align the middle finger parallel to the arm, so pretty much like this. So if I hold my arm like that and click on the button there, and then it asks me to extend my palm upwards. So there we go, palm extended upwards, and click on it there. Now we're calibrated, now we're ready to hit some shots and see what that wrist is doing in the golf swing. Now, before we actually hit some shots and get some measured data of the golf swing, I want to show you what measurements it actually measures the HackMotion here. So we have two measurements it's measuring at the moment, so you can see the numbers going up and down there. On the left hand side in the green we have flexion extension. So flexion is this movement of the wrist, extension is this movement of the wrist. So you may know flexion as bowing or arching, and extension you may know as cupping of the wrist, and it measures those two things. The blue one here is ulnar and radial deviation. So we have ulnar deviation, which is the wrist going down this way, and radial deviation, which is the wrist going this way. So it's effectively cocking and uncocking of the wrist, and it measures those things as well. It also measures forearm roll and rolling of the hands as well, but we only get that data after we've hit a shot. So now we know what we're looking for. Let's go ahead, hit a shot, get some data, and see what it tells us our wrist is doing. So as we look at the data here of that shot there, we get some 3 points here on the left hand side. We get address, top of the backswing, and impact. And according to the HackMotion at address, I had 27 degrees of extension. So that's this one. So it's a little bit of extension there at the start, a little bit of cupping at the wrist. At the top of the backswing, I had 33 degrees of extension. And at impact, I had 14 degrees of extension. So most of the time during the golf swing, my wrist was in some form of extension on that particular shot. Now, the one below it here in the blue is the ulnar and radial deviation. So I started my golf swing with 38 degrees of ulnar deviation. That's this way. And by the time I've gone to the top of the backswing, I'm in 5 degrees of radial deviation, which is interesting. That's about as far as I can go really in terms of radial deviation. And then at impact again, I'm back at 42 degrees of ulnar deviation. We also get this graph here which tells us what's happening in real time during the golf swing. So we can see here, this line here is address. So the green line here, we can see the extension is extension flexion is above the 0 line. So I'm in extension here. I start to flex the wrist more. I don't go into flexion, but I move it towards flexion. And then I start extending up to the top, and then slowly flexing again, extending again. And so my wrist is doing this all the time during the golf swing, and this graph basically can tell you exactly whereabouts it is doing that. Fantastic graph to really get used to looking at. So that's the data it's given me on that particular shot. It's all based on the ball flight I hit and the individual that you teach, or whatever your issues or your goals are within your golf swing. But the great thing is you get instant data straight after a shot. You know exactly what your wrist has done, and then you know what you need to work on. So now I want to take you through another feature of the HackMotion Wrist Sensor, and this for me is the best feature that the HackMotion that does. It's great that we've got all this data. It's how do we go about implementing change, and the biofeedback section is absolutely brilliant for this. So this basically allows you to set a parameter of what you want your golfer to achieve with their wrist, and if they're within their parameters of doing that, you'll hear a noise. So I'll set that up for you now and show you exactly what happens there. So if I click on the biofeedback button here, we're going to work on flexion and extension, and we're going to go from 0. Well, I had quite a lot of extension throughout my golf swings. How about we decide that I want to get more towards flexion through my golf swing. So I'm going to set that at 10 degrees of flexion and 5 degrees of extension. So I want to maintain a flatter wrist rather than an extended wrist through the golf swing. And I'm going to turn the biofeedback on here now. And off we go. So at the moment, my wrist is in 23 degrees of extension at the moment. I'm going to move it towards extension. And once it gets to that number that I'm looking for, that 5, we start to hear the noise. And I keep going. And I keep going, and I go past 10, and it stops again. So whenever I'm in between that area, it makes a noise. So if I'm making a golf swing, I want to go to the top of the backswing, and I want to be in the area that we've decided it will make the noise. If I'm outside that area, we lose the noise. So this is a great way of getting your students or getting yourself to feel where you need your wrist to be at any point during the golf swing, depending on what you're particularly working on. So that's the biofeedback feature, great feature for measuring improvement and implementing change in what you want to do. So that's just a little introduction to the HackMotion Wrist Sensor. I personally love using this every day in my golf lessons. I believe the wrists are a very, very important part of the golf swing, and understanding what they're doing throughout the golf swing really is huge. So if you want more information about the HackMotion, you can visit the Mere Sports Technology website. That's meresportstechnology.com, and there is more information about how to get hold of one there and what the HackMotion does. So thank you for listening to me about the HackMotion. I hope you enjoyed my quick review of what it all does, and please take a look at it. It will be definitely worth your while.